Hello and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Thiago Da Costa. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Toric. We're a data company working primarily with general contractors. Today I have the pleasure to be talking to Maribeth Achterberg from the Boldt Company. Maribeth is joining me from Milwaukee. Have you done any exercise within Boldt or within your past experiences where you design some KPIs that are trackable and easily adopted by other companies? Like, what would you call those key metrics that would be used to measure success and help you become a data-centric organization?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've been doing this for many years. I think before you actually invest in technology because you think you want to do a really cool thing, you have to understand what it is you're going to do differently than you're doing today.
Mm-hmm.
And understand that, you might want to invest $1 million in something and you don't even understand, well, what are you going to do different tomorrow after you have that, your day one, than you're doing today. And I don't think people think that deeply. They just think about, I want to get after that new technology because I think it'll do, X, Y, Z for my company.
Mm.
So it really is rolling it back, right? Again, I go back to my earlier comment. It's really the humans that we have to work on as far as what is it they're going to do? Because none of this technology is going to eliminate human beings. Really, all of this technology is to assist human beings. Now, that doesn't mean that there might not be a job that's eliminated, but it's, to me, it's not about eliminating a job. It's freeing a human to do higher order work.
Mm-hmm.
What is that human going to do differently? What are you going to do on day one differently than day, n minus whatever, 60, that you couldn't do unless you employed that data technology? And that starts to help build out that business case. And you need to think about that, right? And you need to understand what's important, what metrics are important to your organization. Financial metrics are pretty much ubiquitous, right? We know about revenue, we know about profit margins. Are there things specific to your organization? So when I was at Johnson Controls, we actually had the key financial KPIs, but we also had process metrics. So if I'm going to improve this process and use information to flow through that to create more efficiency, what am I going to measure to prove that I've actually improved this process? So there's process level metrics that you need to identify that roll up to a financial metric. And we actually tied them together. We made sure that any process we were going to spend money and time improving tied to a financial metric, because at the end of the day, in any enterprise, that's what matters, right? You really have to think about that. Process metrics tied to whatever you're going to spend your time improving and applying data to. And it depends on the enterprise that you're a part of as to what that process metric might be. But I can use one example that's the same everywhere. So one of the process metrics that we've looked at is how many days to financial close. Because financial close actually holds up a lot of things in an organization, particularly if it's year-end financial close, right? Sometimes you have blackout periods, you can't implement any improvements in your systems because you've got a blackout period for financial close.
Right.
And so if you could actually improve the time to metrics are really great to think about. Time to whatever, time to financial close, time to a sale, time to a value. If you can reduce that cycle time, you're creating opportunities and probably improving your bottom line. So time to financial close, can you compress that? I don't know how many days it takes today. Maybe it takes 8. Can you compress it to 5? Can you compress it to 3? So continually driving for continuous improvements and reducing these time to or cycle time metrics helps you understand the value you're creating for your organization.
That makes a ton of sense. I think like in the world of SaaS companies, right, software as a service companies, which I've been in for the past, I don't know how long, everything is driven through a metric, right? So monthly active users, daily active users, ARR, annual recurring revenue, ACVs, average contract value. These are like super well-known metrics that we use to measure the health and the longevity of a startup or a company that's in a growth stage.
Right.
We have the benefit that all the data is digital from the get-go, and every transaction, everything you do online is already pretty much what you use to measure. So would you say that one of the biggest challenges to get to these KPIs is getting the right information and moving the right data to the right place and being able to like do all these reporting? Would you say that that's one of the challenges
Oh,
getting
absolutely.
KPIs?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we can define the KPIs at the executive level, but then we don't know where the data is coming from all the time, right? Some of the data is automated, some of it's not. In construction, you might be dealing with a particular subcontractor that is not automated at all,
Mhm.
and perhaps your excavating company, they don't tend to, they don't tend to be highly automated.
Yeah.
And so you have to think about everybody's in a different stage of maturity from a data perspective. And so, what can you do to improve that flow of
Yeah.
information coming into? Hopefully, you have a data lake or a data business data warehouse that you're normalizing that information in. So I understand is not like a slam dunk from a construction standpoint, right? But pick a process that is going to create value and then trace that all the way back to the origin of the information and automate that
Yeah.
as much as you have control over, and making sure that then you can have a proof of concept that that will work for other areas of the business and different processes.
Yeah, so the data readiness is a big piece, right? Like, is your data ready to execute on that vision? The
Right.
time metrics, right? Like, these are great metrics. I have actually never heard anybody talk about in that way, which I like a lot because it offers a framework, like time to whatever, right?
Right.
Um, time to value would be the first thing that comes to mind when you're a SaaS company, like how long it takes for your customer to extract value from your platform. But again, that's a digital scenario when
Sure.
time to excavation complete might be a lot more complicated to measure.
It
Um,
might be, but you can think about it in terms of productivity by
yeah,
day.
yeah,
How far did you get?
yeah,
And right? And what did you estimate it would take to get to done, whatever done looks like?
um,
And you feed that in and continually you're doing the same digging over and over again, right? I don't
yeah,
know that excavation is different, right? You're digging and hauling.
yeah.
Uh, how many iterations have you done in a year's time? How many projects have you done?
And
And
use
where
that as a baseline, I guess. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. So how would you prioritize the sort of the sources of data for achieving this? Like thinking about like we talked about like financial margin erosion, some of those, and then like some of these process metrics. How would you prioritize like getting the sources of data to that lake or warehouse as you're pointing out? Do you have already a roadmap, or how would you suggest like companies approach it?
Yeah, it depends on how automated a company is and how large they are, right? They probably already have systems where some of this data resides if they're a larger construction organization. They probably already have an ERP system. They probably already have a CRM function or system. It might all be one integrated system. I don't know. They probably employ the area that I think is probably a little more fragmented is how they go through the process of design and build, and
Mm,
those may not be integrated. And I think about this even from an ERP standpoint in manufacturing, working with large organizations like Johnson Controls, where we felt like we had to get all the ERPs on one instance, which were very expensive and time consuming. Now I think about it more like a data issue, and we really should probably think about it more like a data issue. Maybe what we really need to be thinking about is getting those systems to feed back into a data lake where we
mm.
can normalize that information, right? And then do the analytics or business decision making that
Off
we
of the lake. Yeah.
off the lake. And so I guess where I would start, if you haven't thought about this in construction or other industries, is think about where the system of record should be for that particular data domain or data element, and then feed this back into a data lake.
Mm.
And think about doing, if it's, and this is old concepts in data management, right? We have transactional, operational, analytical. Think about not worrying about, if you don't have to worry about using your transactional data, anything over 24 hours can then be operational, and anything at over 31 days is then analytical in nature. And so if you think about data stages in that sense, maybe it's okay. You'll be able to answer the questions you're thinking about in the by analytical means. Not everything has to be within. So data latency is a huge delineator of how do I solve this problem? Do I have to really get everything into one ERP, or can I suck this into my data lake on a regular interval, maybe every 24 hours at day's close, and solve the problem there?
Yeah.
So I think because we're getting more sophisticated with our tooling in the data space, you can start to have those conversations where you couldn't before.
Love it. Yeah. Selfishly, I love it because that's what my company builds.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So I believe that's the case. I mean, software will continue to change. We adopt always a new technology, right? So there's an explosion of construction software tools. There's going to be new software tools all the time for safety, for insurance, for, you name it. Every field, every piece of construction will have a new tool, and you just can't afford to integrate all of them one to one. It's just never going to happen. So,
Right. Yeah,
um,
months to the ERP company's chagrin, getting everybody on a single, instance of name your ERP is probably not the most efficient thing to do anymore.
yeah, it also takes 2 years minimum.
Yeah, it's not efficient. It's not time. That whole time to, right? It doesn't solve that time to
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
Yeah,
And you can't
absolutely.
be solving other problems you would be solving if you're spending your time doing that.
And I have worked in organizations where that was the case. Hey,
Yeah,
business, you hold on that really important problem you have because I'm working through my ERP transformation. We'll see you in a couple of years. That's not a good conversation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, last question here, just to wrap up. Like, how do you see the industry using more data and AI in the future? Is there some key areas you see that evolving and happening? And I mean, when I say in the future, I'm saying the next couple of years. Do you see like some key changes in the horizon that could affect the whole industry, and what does it look like?
Yeah, well, that's a loaded question. So I do think that we're going to see a lot more technology infused in construction. Um, Not only from a performance standpoint, right? And I mentioned some of that because safety is a huge issue in construction, and I don't know if people realize the fact that it's actually still a really dangerous industry to be a part of. And so safety is a huge concern. And so using technology to keep construction workers safe, not only from the cool kind of stuff, exoskeletons, but sensors on the gear that they wear, but also employing robots and robotics and 3D printing. I think that's some of the most exciting kinds of technological advancements that we'll see in construction, and see that those are employed more and more. It's hard to get it at scale in some of those instances, but we've done it in manufacturing from a robotics standpoint, and I think that it's absolutely feasible to employ that technology as well. I think in the whole sales piece of it, in the pursuit part of the process, leveraging virtual reality is a huge opportunity, because if they can experience it before they sign off on it, then you're less likely to have change orders. And so then things are delivered more on time and on budget. And that makes owners happy. and people occupy the buildings because obviously there's a need if a building is being built. So people get to occupy the building in a quicker fashion. So I think AR is an opportunity as well. And then just how we make decisions, right? Generative AI is definitely going to be uh, a useful tool in different areas of of construction. I can think of, for estimating, for example, if you could go and call through all the estimates you've made in all the projects in 134 years, you'll definitely probably start to see some trends of where you can improve your estimating. And so using some of these tools to solve problems, maybe problems you didn't even know that you could solve because there was no way to call through from a human perspective all that data. And so I think there's opportunity there. But, you know, the same as everything, the data has to be of good quality for it to be meaningful. Otherwise, it'll send you off in the wrong direction. And so underpinning everything is good data management practices, good data governance practices, and making sure the people in your organization are literate, really do understand the data that they're using so that they're not recommending or making poor decisions.
Great. Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I love the idea that we might be leveraging more robotics. I think everybody's been dreaming of the day where robots work for us. So maybe the day's coming. And I think especially around safety of workers and people doing more meaningful work over time,
Right.
freeing up the human. I love those concepts. I think they are very much they've been around for a while, but we haven't been able to execute on them. So I'm hoping AI is going to land us there eventually by giving more capabilities to machines so that they can interface better with humans and they can also interface better with the world, right?
Yeah.
So I like that vision there. Thank you. This was very good. Thanks, Maribeth, for joining me today. For more interviews, please visit the CDO Magazine Tech website. We have done lots of different interviews with key leaders in the industry. So thank you for joining me today, and
Thank you. I enjoyed it.